Yeah. Hello, boys and girls. My name is Marthan Damron. I am a retired school teacher. I was the school librarian at Prestonsburg Elementary. I brought a story to share with you today of my favorite Kentucky author. His name is Paul Brett Johnson. And Paul Brett Johnson was born in Mousy, Kentucky, which is in Knott County, which is very close to where we live. Now, he was an artist, and so he became an illustrator, and then he decided he would do children's books, and he became an author. He's written all kinds, Jack Tales, lots of wonderful children's books. The book that I brought to read to you today is part of a set. Now, the very first book in the set is called The Cow Who Wouldn't Come Down. And the cow in this story is named Gertrude. Now, in all three stories, there are a cow, a pig, and a goose. And they all belong to Miss Rosemary. The second book in the set is The Pig Who Ran the Red Light. And the last book in the set is The Goose Who Went Off in a Huff. I hope you enjoy this story. It has a wonderful moral or lesson for you. See if you can figure out what he's trying to tell you. Ever since Gertrude had taken up flying, there had been no living with George. There's Gertrude flying. Whee! Came a sudden high squeal. Miss Rosemary made it to the kitchen door in time to see her pig take a run and go off the end of the porch. Frump! Miss Rosemary shook her head. Oh, honestly, George, just because Gertrude is a silly nincompoop doesn't mean you have to be one too. It's a known fact. Pigs don't fly. Now, look what you've done to my petunias. George was not about to listen to reason, however, and the minute Gertrude fired up the old farm tractor and climbed in, then George jumped behind the wheel of Miss Rosemary's pickup truck. George smashed the chicken coop, squished over the pumpkin patch, bounced across the creek, and chugged off down US 80 on the wrong side of the road. Heaven help us all, Miss Rosemary cried as she ran to the phone to call the sheriff. This is an emergency. My pig is driving on the wrong side of the road. Oh, now, don't worry about a thing, ma'am, said the sheriff. We'll take care of the situation. And when he hung up, he said, little lady said that there was a pig driving down the wrong side of the road. However, it wasn't very long until the sheriff really saw George with his own eyes. He had to give George a ticket for running a red light and driving without a license. He then called Miss Rosemary to come and get her pig. What am I going to do with you, George? Miss Rosemary scolded. It's a known fact. Pigs don't drive. Why do you have to act like Gertrude? Why can't you be yourself? When George and Miss Rosemary got home, Gertrude was practicing the piano. George joined in. George, you're going to send me to the loony bin, Miss Rosemary shouted above all the noise. There was no doubt something had to be done. And so Miss Rosemary had a long talk with Gertrude, just the two of them. The following day at lunch, Miss Rosemary rang the bell. Clang, clang, clang. Who wants a big slice of apple pie? Gertrude came running. And George was very close behind. Oink, oink, said Gertrude. George stopped dead in his tracks. He cocked his head and looked at Gertrude. After lunch, Gertrude went to the barnyard. She stuck her nose in the ground and began rooting and snorting. She even managed to curl her tail and go oink, oink, oink. George was speechless. Later that afternoon, Miss Rosemary hooked up the garden hose and made a huge pit of yucky, mucky, black, stinky mud. "Anybody for a waller?" Miss Rosemary asked. Gertrude jumped in, kersplat, right in that yucky, mucky pit. She rolled over and tossed all that mud in the air. "Oink, oink, 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 oink," squealed Gertrude, pretending that she was in hog heaven. Suddenly, George screamed like a fire engine, "Whee!" and jumped right into that pit. Kersplat. Miss Rosemary sighed. At last, her pig was acting like a pig. "Cows are cows, and pigs are pigs," said Miss Rosemary, "and that's a known fact." "Oink, oink," said George. "Oink, oink," said Gertrude. "Oink, oink," said Magnolia. Now, thinking about our story, what do you think is the moral or the lesson here? Could it be that it's best to be yourself and not try to act like somebody else? I think that's his message, don't you? I hope you enjoyed your story, boys and girls.